guys, welcome to another episode of Horror Movie Night. This week we're talking about how the blood hook brings you back. That one's for you, Brian, who just last week was like, Matt, I need you to sing every time, so I'm happy to help out. First of all, we got to dive in that Scott picked this, but right out the gate, my first note was, oh shit, it's trauma. So Scott, blood hook. What's up with that?
You're so white. I don't actually know why I wanted to discuss this movie. A little wizard behind the curtain. As some people may have noticed, I like to pick things that are seasonally appropriate. And this is going to be quite a seasonally appropriate summer, starting with Blood Hook on 5/1, because we have a lot of water-based horror coming at you. At least Matt and I have a lot of water-based horror coming at you. Brian is just picking whatever he has on his Netflix queue. But I was like, it's like early spring, it's late spring. I want something that's a little weird, and I wanted to get a little blood hook in us. It's such a ridiculous concept that I just couldn't resist. It's not a good movie. Like, it is not a good movie, and I'm not trying to say it is. But the fact of the matter is that I've watched it twice within a 6-month time period.
So do you want to know a fun fact about this movie that I didn't know when I was watching it, and it doesn't really answer any questions that I have about it, but it's just kind of interesting. The director of this movie and the director of photography, I want to say, of this movie, never met each other until they were both hired for this film, right? And they became the creators of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yeah, I read that too. So weird.
Like, they just kind of like hit it off and then like introduced each other to two of their like improv friends, and they became the voices of Gypsy and Tom Servo on the show as well. So they created the show and then also did the voices of some of the robots. But I was like, that's insane that they met on this movie.
It's so funny how Troma
just brings people together to be more famous than Troma.
Yeah, it's like a curse. Like Trey Parker, Matt Stone, James Gunn, and the guys that started Mystery Science Theater 3000, and the list goes on.
I like how you said that in descending order.
Yeah. So I don't think that it's an accident. Like, I think he saw something in James Gunn, and he saw something in Trey and Matt, and he saw something in these people and was like, you know what? Let's give it a shot. Like, Blood Hook is not a movie where you watch it and go like, oh, these guys are going to be superstars, but it definitely has a sense of identity. You know what I mean? Like, it's definitely not trying to be like anybody else's movie.
No, it's really not. No, I mean, I really like the concept and how goofy it is, because it knows what it's making.
Yeah, but I said this to you guys in our text chat. Like, the problem with this movie is that the entire conceit is a giant murderous hook killing each one of these characters, and it turns out that there's like only so many ways to make that interesting.
The funny part about it is that they are like, let's give someone a giant fish hook to murder people with, but let's also make them a terrible caster. Like, the actual murderer is awful at his job.
I mean, let's talk about the beginning. The beginning is so funny because you've got this bluesy, like Billie Holiday-esque song.
Oh yeah, if you wanted to know why I picked this, add this to the list of movies I've picked that starts with like 50 songs.
Yeah, like it starts with this 50 song, and then it's just like this grandfather teaching his grandson about fishing. And there's this I wrote down top-notch facial acting.
He just grabs his face.
Yeah, well, he like makes this look of like, oh no. And then like the grandson makes like a, oh, grandpa type face. And then all of a sudden the grandpa's holding his face and you can't see what's going on. And then it's a wide shot where he just gets pulled into the water.
I love the fact that every single person that jumps into the water, falls into the water in this movie, does so looking like a fucking G.I. Joe getting thrown in a bathtub. Yeah. Like the legs are, I don't know.
We got to talk about the old lady that's just spinning randomly on the top.
We'll get there. We have a very important discussion topic right before she gets offed.
Lead us to it.
Oh, okay. So the whole thing is that the grandfather gets pulled into the water And then it fast forwards 17 years later, and that boy is now a man. He's probably like, what, 22, 23 at this point.
Yeah, it looks like they're like fresh out of college. This could be like a post-college trip.
Yeah, or it's spring break. I think of this movie as kind of like a spring break movie personally, but it doesn't really matter. That's why I picked it though, is because it felt like a spring break end of college type. In any case, the Yooper accent, I mean, it's like Wisconsinite, I guess, but this is like the weirdest American accent, in my opinion. It sounds almost like Russian, but it also sounds like they might just be drunk. And the working title was Musky Madness. You are introduced to that group of the college age, like the 20-somethings who are the prime victims, I guess. But then you also get the secondary set of victims with this guy who hates his wife, and they're in like a Winnebago, and they're coming up to fish. And they meet Ludker, is that what the name of the guy is, who runs the bait shop? And the kid, he goes about telling the little boy about a stud finder, and it is the most absurd conversation because the kid's like, "Wow, that's so cool! How much for it?" And I mean, I guess kids are fucking stupid sometimes like that, but a stud finder? And then he's just like, "No, you can have it." And then the guy is trying to buy bait, and he's like, "Can you break 100?" And Luke is like, "It's on the house," which is so weird because then he murders everybody. Spoiler alert, it's the bait shop guy.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like the implication in this movie is that the cicadas drive someone crazy or something like that.
Yeah, it's that's why it says 17 years later, because 17 years cicadas. So they're going nuts in the forest, and that mixed with the sound of music, not the movie, but music blended with those cicadas makes the metal plate in Ludker's head vibrate. Vibrations, man!
Dude, yeah, best character.
That
the
guy,
drunk conspiracy theorist is my favorite guy.
But he looks nothing like a conspiracy theorist.
No.
He looks like someone that thinks everyone that isn't Republican is a communist. That's what he looks like.
Which sometimes are conspiracy theorists.
I was about to say, like, I don't think that you're in contact with enough conservatives nowadays, because let me tell you, boy. So we meet that second group of people in the Winnebago, and then the first group of the 20-somethings get to Musky Heaven, rather, and they meet the Musky Maniac. I love how everything's a fucking alliteration in this movie. And the guy's like really upset that Finner, who's the guy who's a master caster, I went there. He has that tassel on the back of his fishing pole, and he goes, "Change is one thing I don't tolerate. You better remember that." And I just was like, man, this movie came out in 1981, but boomers have been the same since 1981, man. And then we have another line right immediately following that. That's, "Ronnie, you can't go around messing with other people's wood. They got rules up here." Which Ronnie is the new wave kid who's got like the earring, and Peter, I want to say, is the guy whose house or the family owns that house, and he is the most cardboard cutout actor in a movie full of cardboard cutout actors. He's so bad, and he's like the main character, and he's supposed to save the day and shit. It's wild. He doesn't know the movie he's in. Everybody else does.
There's a bunch of, early on in the movie, the characters all show up and they're like getting registered for this
Musky Madness.
And there's the one girl, Beverly.
Yep, Bev.
And she is just sexual innuendos and flirtatious, but like unintentionally. And I have the one line where she just goes, "Nice pole. I like it."
Yep. Yeah, but that's Finner's pole. She eventually rides his other pole because her beer for brains husband isn't around. Bev is a very, very problematic character in this movie. She is so hot to trot. She's banging everybody, including this conspiracy theorist, and she's leaving her kid in like a pack and play or whatever outside while she runs like half a dozen miles, quote unquote. And where's the kid when she's banging all these dudes? Like, she is a bad mom. And also, where's her kid when she's working at Muskie Madness for $20 a day or whatever it is.
There's a lot of questions and not a lot of answers
Yeah.
raised by old Bev.
But the part that I was getting us to, and the part that you wanted to talk about was Winnebago Mom, who they're sitting at the table, and oh my God, she goes, "There were so many loons today. Where do they all come from? Woohoo! Woohoo!" And then she's like, "Oh, we need to go watch on Golden Pond again. I love Peter Fonda." And the kid goes, "Henry Fonda, Mom, you got the wrong one." So fucking funny. And she's just like, "Oh, hoo hoo," and then she goes outside to like look for loons, and then I don't know why, but the cicadas come in, and then Ludger is so pissed off that he wraps the fishing line around her head, and she's his first modern victim.
So can I tell you what I thought this movie was going to be about, by the way?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So when I was a kid, there was a famous video game, PC game, called Deer Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
But then there was another game called Deer Avenger.
My favorite game.
Yeah, you were a deer walking around with a gun hunting hunters. And I
What was
genuinely
that for? What was the?
it was
PC?
it was a PC.
Okay.
It was a PC game. But I genuinely thought that this movie was going to be about fishing humans.
You know, that would be a sweet idea for a movie. But sadly, no. This is just about a crazed bait and tackle guy.
Just found myself watching it and just being like, how are the fish casting these hooks out of the water?
Yeah, I didn't understand this movie the whole time. I actually only joined this episode so I could figure out what I just watched.
Well, to be fair, and to both of you guys' credit, it took me till the second time to realize the 17 years later thing and the cicadas, because it's kind of like a throwaway line that Peter makes when he and the old guy, who is like the
red herring throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, which is ironic to call him a red herring. I didn't even write that down as a note. I should have. Yeah, he's talking to him and he goes, "It has to be the vibrations of the cicadas." That guy's really weird too. Man, so the Winnebago dude is reversing the Winnebago and almost hits the old guy in his boat. And the old guy's like, "Ah, you son of a bitch." And he goes, "Ah, stuff it, Mr. Green Jeans." Which is like the best way to make fun of somebody, is like to make fun of what they're wearing. You know, like you go down the street and somebody's wearing like ass wash jeans and they trip and you're like, "Good job, Canadian idiot." I don't know, like something like that. It's just like, I'm not good at that off the cuff stuff, but to be like, "Ah, stuff it, Mr. Green Jeans," so funny.
Nice hat.
The weirdest thing about this is that Peter's girlfriend, the one who's like psychoanalyzing everything all the time, she never takes off her crazy giant, these earrings that look like lightning bolts. She's wearing them to bed. She's wearing them out on the lake. She's never takes them off. It's very strange. And my favorite part of this movie, absolutely favorite part of this movie, and the reason why I knew that we had to talk about it, is when Anne is his girlfriend's name, she is trying to meditate on the docks, and Kirsten, the ditzy girl, won't shut the fuck up. Kirsten goes, she has some of the greatest lines. She goes, there's like nothing happening on this lake. And Anne is like trying to meditate, and she's like, "Why is Peter even out here? Fishing is rude." And then Anne tries to explain things, and the end of her little soliloquy is, "Casting is a symbol of Peter's trying to fathom the very deep waters of his trauma." And then Kirsten gives her the stink face and goes, "I thought he was trying to catch a fish."
That actually made me laugh.
Yeah. This movie is really, really funny. It's fucking stupid, but it's really funny.
So one of the parts that made me laugh out loud, and it's one of those ones where I'm like, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but their friend Pete gets murdered, right? He gets the hook in the gut, and he disappears, and they're talking to the cop, and the one female friend is like crying and yelling.
That's Kirsten.
Yeah, Kirsten's crying, yelling at the cop, and it is complete gibberish. Like there's not an intelligible word that comes out. And there's one point where she just runs away, and I swear to God, the noise she makes is she just goes, and she like runs off in the woods.
Yeah. Which reminds me of 40-Year-Old Virgin when Kat Denning is screaming and crying in the bathroom, and Steve Carell goes, "She sounds like a tea kettle."
Yeah. That part made me laugh really hard. And then this is the strangest note I've ever written down, and I feel weird that I wrote this down, but there's the scene that I wrote down as the old sit-up seduction.
Oh yeah.
So the two characters are sitting there and they're just doing sit-ups, but they kiss, and I wrote down that it's the most realistic kiss I've ever seen captured on film, because it's like, it's not like it leads to like some porno makeout, and it's not like it's two people who like are very awkwardly being forced to kiss for a movie, and it doesn't look like a stage kiss. Like it just looks like the same kiss you would see at like any wedding. Like it's just like
Brian's taking notes like, okay, this is how I have to do it when I get married.
Well, that's what I mean, because I was like, oh man, we're gonna get to some awkward sex scene, but then it's just like they kiss for like 10 seconds, and then there's like that little extra peck at the end to be like, and we're done.
I did actually. It's the little peck at the end. It feels like the way that I kiss my wife. It's like
it's weird, right? Like it's like, are they just actual people who were dating while they were making the movie, and they're like, just kiss a little?
Yeah, that must be it. I feel like you have unearthed the secret of Bloodhook.
And the secret of the ooze.
I think that Bev unleashed the secret of the ooze later on. You know what's so you know what's so funny is that this movie had no budget for like nude scenes, because Anne takes off her top and you get some very tasteful side boob, but it's for like literally 2 seconds, and then she like lays on top of Peter, and then that's it.
I want to talk about the last 15 minutes. I want to talk about...
Are you going to talk about the fact that he's keeping everybody's body underneath his dock? Like,
so
Luca?
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. I love, for a movie that has very little budget and supposedly had to really fight for an R rating, which is weird to me. You get that scene where he hooks a character.
Oh, that's a great effect.
But then, he actually like physically puts a hook in their jaw, and he's putting the rope through their mouth, and I'm like, okay, this is what I was hoping for the last hour, like some really gross, gnarly shit like that. And then he starts tugging on the rope, and you see just this like train of corpses that are all just like, and they're not like the best, like, let's be honest, they're like,
they don't look good, but
but it's a good effect, and I like the overall like look of everything. That part I was like, okay, now I'm in, like, and then I hit the like, how much time is left? I'm like, all right, 10 minutes left. So it took him a while to get me hooked, but I'm in.
Well, and the weird thing is that they kind of half-ass try to get everybody be a red herring instead of Ludker, because it's like the one guy is mad about losing his lead-filled fish. Then there's the old guy who's like, he's got to be the red herring because he got all mad at Ronnie. And then they got, I don't know, like everybody. And Finner is like, oh, Finner just needs a girlfriend. And then he sees Evelyn and Bev having sex, and then you're like, okay, it must be him. And then it's like, no, all these people are getting knocked off by the real killer. It's just so funny. Like I don't know what the thought process for that was.
But yeah, then we get to the big final standoff, which I wrote down as the fishing hook to the face standoff.
Oh, yeah. One guy gets it in the neck and the other guy gets it in the chest, which is so dumb. Like, fucking... Oh, before that, Finner gets killed, the master caster, and Ronnie calls him Fin Fuck at one point, and I thought that was the funniest fucking nickname. But he gets hooked in the ear by Ludker, and he's so drunk that he is shocked, and he pulls off his own ear, and then he jumps into the water again like a fucking G.I. Joe toy, and then Ludker gets him and turns him into human chum. And so he's like turning all of the people into human chum, and then Peter finds out because he's with the guy. And like when you find a bucket of human chum that is absolutely going to seal the case on who's the murderer in the town, What are you gonna do? You put your fucking hands on it? Like he just
Yeah.
takes it out of the fridge. I don't understand. But then you're missing before the final battle. You have like a montage of the old man teaching Peter Van Cleese to cast, and he's like, "Not yet. Don't call me Van Cleese yet. I've got to fight for it." And then he has the one-on-one with the actual killer.
Learning the perfect cast, something that we also learned on our Patreon episode on a Goofy movie.
Oh my God. You just ruined your double feature.
No, I've got one. But since you mentioned it, let's dive into our double features. Water pun. What is your double feature for Bloodhook?
This is weird, but I was kind of getting the Burning vibe. I don't know why. The Burning isn't a movie that I watch very often. I think I've only seen it twice. And we've discussed doing it on the show and decided not to many times because Matt always talks me down saying it's a pretty slow movie.
It's a slow movie with a great sequence. It's my thing.
Yeah, one great sequence. Yeah.
So, Brian, what was your double feature with Bloodhook?
I'm going to do Piranha 3D.
Man.
Because water.
So, this movie I didn't even realize I owned because it came on a box set from Troma of some of their like really low budget acquisition movies. And the reason that I bought that box set was for a different Troma movie that is also really, really dumb, but I kind of love, called Blades. And the concept of Blades is that it is, all intents and purposes, a shot-for-shot remake of Jaws. The only difference is that it doesn't take place at a beach, it takes place at a golf resort, and instead of a killer shark, it's a killer lawnmower.
What?
But otherwise it hits all of the plot points of Jaws.
That sounds incredible. I gotta watch it.
I actually do want to watch it.
It's very mediocre, but I was obsessed with the concept. And when I was like, ooh, I can get that in 2 other Troma movies in this one box set? Sure, why not? It's only $8. So I grabbed it and then never watched the other 2 movies that were on it until just now. What is something that you watched that you want to talk about?
Wow, put me on the spot, man.
Shining the spotlight on you.
Wow. It took how many years? Damn.
Almost 250 episodes, but we're there now.
Yeah. Hell yeah. No going back. No takesy backsies. We watched Brittany Runs a Marathon.
How was that? Because I've seen that advertised a lot in my life.
It was quite good, actually.
Nice.
I was surprisingly entertained. I mean, it's not really my kind of movie, and there are some parts in it that are like cringy on purpose, and that always bugs the piss out of me. But aside from that, it was really, really fun time. And then I watched Animal from 2014, and I only watched it because it was our dude Brett Simmons. I think it's his directorial debut. But it's a Brett movie, and love him. And if you haven't watched, if listeners have not watched You Might Be the Killer, do so immediately because it's a very, very fun movie. Brett's awesome and a really sweet dude. Animal is not a great script, but it's actually super competently filmed, and the monster looks amazing. It just looks really nice, you know?
Right. Brian, how about you? What's something that you watched you want to promote real quick?
The only other thing I watched was Knives Out. It was good. That's it.
You know, I were you surprised by the twist that happens halfway through the movie?
Yeah, and honestly, here's the thing. I feel like at the beginning of it, it was a great movie, and then the twist happened, and it wasn't a great movie. And then the ending happened, and it went back to being a great movie.
I liked it the whole way through, but I thought that the twist, the reason why I like Rian Johnson is the reason why so many people hate The Last Jedi, is that I feel like he very actively tries to subvert expectations of things. If you haven't seen Knives Out, hit that skip button a couple times. But like in most murder mysteries, the whole thing is figuring out who is the person that ultimately killed somebody. And the idea of revealing that mid-movie, and then you're on this path of like, well, I really like this person, so I don't want them to go to jail, like, is a cool subversion of the murder mystery. And then obviously there's more twists beyond that. But like, I thought that was a really cool kind of change to the pace of a normal murder mystery movie.
Yeah, no, I like the idea, and I wasn't like, this sucks. It just, I lost interest. I don't know.
Gotcha. I took advantage of being forced to work from home for the foreseeable future and watched the entire available on Netflix anyway series of Schitt's Creek, which I absolutely loved. At first, I wasn't sure how I felt about it, but around like middle of season 2, I found it to be a really charming and fun show. Have either of you watched Schitt's Creek?
Yeah, I
No.
watched it because it's like Dad's favorite show.
Yeah, so what I like about it is that the way I've explained it to someone is it's like Arrested Development if the Bluths were redeemable. And like that's what I liked it, because I think that like it's kind of similar to something that I was talking to Brian about the other day about like the difference listening to the Gilmore Guys. They were talking about The Office versus Parks and Rec, and he was saying that like The Office is a show that's comedy is built on pessimism, whereas the Parks and Rec, it's a comedy that's built around optimism, and like how much harder it is to be funny while still being optimistic. Like it's a lot easier to make jokes about how terrible everything is, but like to still be funny while showing that like people can be good at heart is like a really weird dynamic. And I think that that's like the difference between Arrested Development and Schitt's Creek is like the thesis of Arrested Development is that these characters are always going to be the same shitty people that they've been since season 1, whereas like Schitt's Creek, the first season is so aggravating because it's these shitty people that refuse to accept that like their life is not what they wanted it to be, like a life of luxury like they were used to. But as the show progresses, it stops being about these rich assholes that are stuck in this shitty town and all they want to do is get out of that town, but more about how they become part of that town and that town changes them for the better, and that they find out that they're happier being poor than they were being rich. And like that's such a more interesting show path to follow, but also to make every episode as funny as it is while it's being very optimistic. And also, I mean, it loves musical theater, so of course I'm gonna the fifth season is literally just the entire storyline from episode 1 to the final episode of season 5 is them trying to put on a local production of Cabaret. So like so like stuff like that is just so charming and funny. And Eugene Levy's son is like a comedic genius to me now. His character David might be one of my favorite TV show characters of all time now. So just I highly recommend Schitt's Creek. And that was Bloodhook from 1996. I should make sure to not be the person who does the what did I watch last, because it makes the transition to the closing so awkward. So if you want to hear us talk about competitive fishing and how stupid it is and how stupid a lot of competitive sports are, then hit up our Patreon at patreon.com/HMN podcast. I don't have a lot to say, so that's going to be one of the shorter ones, I assume, but still tune in every single week here on our feed. Go to our social media pages that are found in the show comments, and we will be back next week with another episode. Next week we're going to be talking about something. I know I picked it. I don't know what I picked though, because my memory is shit. Bye.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network. You're listening to the Geekscape Network.